Okay, should be live now. Whew. Hello, everybody. How are y'all doing? Welcome, welcome. Just make sure everybody knows, of course. All right. Good deal. Welcome, welcome, Stuart. Welcome, my man. Please, please, please give us something positive. We'll see. I'll tell you what I can. There are positives. There are positives, especially around all the injury stuff, which I'll get to for sure. I will get to the injury stuff because there's positives. There's a lot. There are plenty of good things happening. There are plenty of good things happening. But I can already tell this is going to be, I'm going to have some impassioned argument with the chat about some of the views on our window, on transfers, on all of that. For sure I will, because I know people's views. I'm surprised. I guess I'm probably not surprised how negative sometimes people will be. Hello, Money. Hello, Steve. Hello, everybody. And thank you to you members who've joined. Vlado. Thank you to all of you. All right. Just letting everybody kind of pile on in, you know. Now I got to argue with you guys. I'm not going to call you all idiots, but it's not gaslighting either. There's a reality of life and that we all have to get to. Hello, hello. Where are you guys coming from again? If you haven't shared before, I love to see it. I love to see it. Please do share. Let's enjoy this together. Good evening. Good evening. Yeah, we'll talk about the payoffs. We'll talk about all that. I really do want to talk about a lot. No doubt about it. Canada, Toronto, Canada. 3 Canadians in a row. Look at that. Chicago, nice. Quebec, another Canadian. Belfast. I remember looking at my analytics, and a really big chunk is from Canada. I guess that makes sense because you guys are like the European, like the British and the French of America, right? So makes sense. Wow, look at all these. It's awesome. Are y'all watching the Olympics? I haven't watched the Olympics. I watched it a lot when I was a kid. Growing up, I don't have the energy for more sports and more national confrontation. Not that that's what that is. Kind of the opposite. But for more competitions, I don't have the time for it. Yeah, the question mark surrounding injuries a cop-out to preserve players. Maybe. You may be right. I may be crazy. Okay. Cool. So let's start. Let's start what we're going to talk about. All of the topics, all of the wonderful things we have to discuss. Got a fan base in Somalia. That is awesome. That's awesome, Hamza. Thank you. Ethiopia, Nairobi, Kenya. Awesome. Durban. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. Let's do it. What are we talking about today? Yeah. Okay. What are we talking about? Let's start. I'm sorry for delaying. I know I always do this right at the beginning, but I like to just let everybody file in as people attempt to make their way. It's a little later than I'm usually doing this. Hang on, I just want to grab one more thing I wanted to grab. For pictures, for comparisons to stuff. Yeah. Sorry. So sorry. Saw this floating around. I don't know how to do it, but I'll see if I can get to it later. Okay, first we're going to talk about the issues with the sales. We're going to talk about issues with the sales. We're going to talk about that for sure. And we're going to talk about the cost approach, why United are turning away from certain players. We're going to talk about some of the injuries, and there are some good things there. And we're going to talk about Sander Berge and some other potential midfield names. So let's go straight into the first thing on sales. I want to talk first about Wan-Bissaka's situation. Now, as of a couple of weeks ago, he was pretty close to leaving, and it was expected that he was going to leave United. Up until a few days ago, it was still kind of expected. But there's an interesting thing happening here, same as with Scott McTominay, that I want to discuss, and it's a little bit conflicting. Now, I've spoken to people who are either around these players, near to these players, know what they're thinking, or I've spoken, and either way, I've spoken to people about this and around these, and it's been really curious. With Wan-Bissaka, what was the concern all along? Initially, he didn't want to go to West Ham, and then he was a little more open to West Ham, right? He didn't want to go to West Ham. They looked away from him. Then they came back in, and he was more open to joining West Ham at that point in time. And then what happened? They had some talks. It kind of moved ahead closer. United want to get Mazraoui. No, it's not to do with London. I think it's specifically to do with West Ham and certain aspects. But they got a bit closer. United want Mazraoui in, so they were looking at, okay, well, we'll take a good fee. A lower fee maybe. But the problem is, from Wan-Bissaka's perspective, that he doesn't particularly feel like West Ham are going to meet kind of the demands that he has, salary-wise and all that. We know that. These guys have big salaries. There's also the matter of you can play it down or not. Wan-Bissaka's won of FA Cup with us last year, playing well. He won a League Cup with us the year before, playing in the second half and doing a really good job. He's not going to be probably winning those things at West Ham. That's the view of him and others. Look, like it or not, it's less prestigious stepping from United down to a West Ham, a Fulham, these types of places, right? And that is a part of the factor as well. It's multifaceted, but financially, there are two major issues. Number one, and I've spoken about this for years. I spoke about it with Fred last year. When players are in their +1s, many of them have clauses that give them payouts. So this loyalty bonus, this thing that's sort of coming up in terms of a payoff, essentially they're looking at this and saying, well, if you're going to trigger a player's +1 so that they don't get to choose where they want to go, because realize something, United triggered his +1 on January 1st to extend his contract. Now, most of the time, the reason you do that is not with necessarily the straight intention to just sell and profit on a player. It's usually in hopes to keep them or extend or give yourself more time. When you do it this way, the player as a free agent is due for a lot more money if they sign for a club. Okay, if they sign for a club, they're due for a lot more money and getting a good signing bonus. So what is part of the problem you have specifically with United is you have players who are on pretty good wages. We're trying to sell them to clubs that are paying lower wages. There's a difference between selling them to Saudi, where they might get a bump in wages, or when clubs go from Fulham to United and they're getting a bump in wages. You don't have this issue because they're getting a higher pay. When you're at a top club and people are trying to sell you to a lower club and your wages are going to be cut, then you're due, you could look at that and say, well, I'm going to take less money and I don't get this free agent signing bonus. Well, that's not really going to work for me. So someone pay off, the excess plus, because it's not just the wages. Wan-Bissaka could make 2 to 3 million more and get a 4 or 5 million signing bonus when he joins another team. That's just a fact. And it's easy to sit there and say, oh, he should just do that and they can just force him out of the club. Why? They gave him the contract. They gave him that contract. That's why I say it's all the mistakes of the past. You can't just force it to happen. They gave him that contract. He is owed it. He's due it. He's entitled to it. And there's nothing that he's done wrong to not deserve that. It's not like Wan-Bissaka's been a bad, it's not like he's been unprofessional. He hasn't down tools on United or anything. He's played. He's fulfilled the terms of his part of the agreement, and he's helped us win a couple of trophies even. I'm not saying he's been worth the fee we paid, but that's not on him, right? That's the issue here. They gave him the contract. They gave him the fee. It's not his fault that he is entitled to this. He is entitled to his contract, and he's entitled to see it out. That's why it's a contract. And he has those rights. And why should he? Why should he throw away 5 to 7 million? Honestly, you can say just do it, but realize that these players' earning years are like 12 years of professional football. And yeah, they make a lot of money, but come on, look, they don't earn that much in terms of time. They can earn from 20, 22 to 30, 35. And then a lot of them, that's it. And they could have an injury tomorrow and their career's over. People don't like to throw away money, and it's understandable. I'm not saying he hasn't made enough money in his life, but, there's a difference. People securing their present, their future, their families, all of that. People aren't going to give away $5 million for nothing. So this actually happened with Harry Maguire last year, right? Harry Maguire was going down, we had a 30 million bid accepted for Maguire and from West Ham. They didn't want to pay. They were offering lower wages. They didn't want to pay that difference. They didn't want to pay the difference in the wages, right? They didn't, Harry's due an extra 10 million on top of that from his current contract. Why would he want to take less? You can say other clubs are doing it. They're not. You don't know all the details because you don't follow them in the same way. You don't follow how much they actually paid out to players, that you don't follow all of those details because you're not a fan of those clubs. You don't have the information in there. You don't know what kind of bonuses that they're getting. You don't know what kind of wages that they're on and what they're getting comparatively. For example, a lot of players in Italy, you can bring those up as examples, but a lot of players in Italy were probably signed on deals with better tax rates where, when with that ending and certain other things, they could actually get better contracts. So yeah, it's a problem, and that is an issue, and they will get this money. If Wan-Bissaka waits a year and he wants to go to Fenerbahce or Galatasaray in Turkey, who are interested in him, they'll offer him a big sign-on fee, and then they'll offer him a big sign-on fee, and then they'll offer him good wages. And they will. And there will be clubs that offer that. That is a fact. And that's what's going to happen. And so they have the right to this. They have they're entitled to this money. It is what it is. And you can say it's making excuses for millionaires, but it's a lot of money. If he's given up foregoing, let's say, maybe 7 million of his earnings, that might be, in the end, 10% of his lifetime earnings. Okay? Just bear that in mind. Maybe 20% of his lifetime earnings. So let me ask you right now, would you give it up because your company doesn't want you anymore? Would you give up 20% of your lifetime earnings proportionately if just because? Just because, would you? Would you give up 20% of the earnings you will make over your entire life because somebody wants you to leave? When you have a contract, if you were entitled to what kind of pay you were entitled to. No, you would not. You would absolutely not, and nobody would. And that is the problem. It is what it is. You can argue about it all you want. You can stress about it all you want. That's the reality. That's what people are entitled to. Pay me my money, I'll sit on the bench. And that's how most people will think. That's how most people think. It's not blackmail. This is this guy's contract. You can't force him out. You train on your own, don't feature, fine. They'll sit and make money. And then guess what? You're paying him like Sancho for a year for nothing. And then you still can't buy anybody. De Jong did the same thing. Good example there from Steve there. De Jong did the same thing. He wanted his money. When Barcelona tried to force him to United, he wanted his money. He wouldn't leave. Terminating contracts pays out money. You can't just terminate contracts. You have to pay the contract out to terminate it. You know, it just doesn't work this way. You got to understand it. This is all a reality of how things have been over the years. That's why I said at the start of this, I know I'm going to argue with a lot of you about this, because there's so much more to it than the simplicity that it's sometimes presented as. That's all. And geez, all right. And so that's just the way that it is. That's what we have to deal with. So, right. Yeah, that's why. So West Ham still talking about it, still working on it. But if they're going to have to somehow, to make something happen, they're going to have to offer more. You know, if they offered more in wages, then it would reduce the payout. For United, they'd have to pay 5-7 million plus a chunk of, you know, in there, and then the profit that they'd actually be making on this deal comes down to 5 million, something like that, and makes it harder. And why would they? Why would they? You know, it's just, why would they do that? It's not a situation that they want to. Scott McTominay, it's multifaceted. It's a little bit less about the money. It is in a sense about the money, you know. It is a little bit about the money, but a bit less about the money with McTominay. I had an interesting message like a week ago, and I mentioned it in the videos at the start of this week. And I was talking to this person because, you know, I've heard some different things about this overall, about McTominay. You know, through all the way leading up to summer, we wanted to talk about it. All the way through summer, we wanted to talk about it, and it was like, all right, he's going to discuss his future, see where he's at, see what he's looking for, see who might take him, all of that. Essentially, what you know, and there was belief between the clubs, like, and yeah, you know, the thing is that, you know, players are not on the sides of the club. That's their employer. They're all going to be out there. And it, like, this happens in the NBA. It happens in a lot of other sports. It's not like a union in this case, but there's sometimes, you know, players is like, look, we can't let our employers push us around, because bear in mind, by saying force them out, cut this, cut that, do all of that, what you're really saying is, you know, Glazers over the individual. We take in their side. You know, we want to treat our employees that we gave contracts to poorly because of our own mismanagement. Realize that. That's what you're saying. If in that case, that is the position that you are taking. No, it's on management to get things right, not to mistreat their employees. That's just the reality of it, you know. So take a more liberal view on this thing, okay? But with McTominay, you know, he. You know, and again, it's funny because it's like people look at it as being unambitious. I see that comment too plenty of times. They're unambitious because they don't want to move to a shittier club where they're not going to compete for trophies, where they're not going to compete in the Champions League or the Europa League, but maybe a glimpse at the Conference League. That's unambitious. I think you've got it backwards. Being at United is probably their only chance at competing in the highest level of competition. That's not unambitious. It's quite the opposite. It's sitting there saying, I'm going to do my best and see. You can say that's their level, but that you're calling them unambitious. You can't say they're unambitious and then say that's their level. They are ambitious. Ambition is striving for higher than you are at presently. They are ambitious. They want to work their way. And look at McTominay. Look at McTominay last year. He was almost sold. And then he comes in and he's thinking, I saved the manager's ass. And I know he's thinking that, by the way. I know that for a fact. He's thinking that. And the manager's still there. And he saved him many times over. So he's thinking, I'll work my way back into this team. People don't see it within the same way that you do on the outside. But either way, it's a short amount of time for these players before United can move on. McTominay, he absolutely did save Ten Hag, and he knows it. McTominay, you know, he was thinking about Fulham and these options and thinking he probably didn't want to. And that was the interesting thing I was hearing, that he probably was not so hot on Fulham. And I have to wonder if, you know, yeah, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was a sub for a lot of his career too. You know, he was thinking about Fulham and apparently was not really wanting to join, right? And was not so hot on it. And I have a feeling that, you know, part of it was hoping keeping them in the loop and making offers and all of that would drive up more interest and other people. And you know, and it didn't, and then they walked away, and so be it. You know, it was sort of unlikely. It seemed, at a point, it seemed very likely, but there's a lot of conflicting things here, because from people on the club side, they felt he would take the move. Same on the Fulham side. But from the McTominay side, I don't think he really wanted the move. You know, I don't think he really wanted the move there. Galatasaray have made some good offers to him and have been really interested in him, where more wages, good city, Champions League football. And so if you wonder, where does a player get the belief? Well, Galatasaray is a Champions League club. You could say they're not winning Champions League, but they're winning titles in their league, and they're in the Champions League regularly. So, you know, that's not bad. And that's where people are looking at. And then, you know, alternatively, McTominay would take a bigger contract at United for sure. You know, he would if it was there. But he's also somebody who doesn't want to step down to a club that he feels is, you know, not going to compete on these levels. And you can argue with it and say that it's not correct and it's not right. Fair enough. But that is the view of these people. So, you know, if West Ham are coming up with more money, if Galatasaray come in with a big offer, if someone else comes in with a big offer and actually agrees something that we can help encourage these players out the door, then so be it. Then so be it. And we will. But at this point in time, that's a big part of, you know, everything being stuck. And you can say, you know, yeah, we'll tell them we're not going to use them, tell them we're not going to play them, but how can you? You know, we're not in a position, you know, Casemiro not leaving is a much bigger limiting factor for United. And, you know, look, a couple of injuries and McTominay's back on the pitch for Ten Hag. That's the reality of it. And there's not necessarily the confidence yet that we're going to have a deep enough and big enough squad to say, yeah, you're just not going to play. That's the challenge. This is not an easy situation. You know, this is the reality. Yeah, most footballers can only dream of being bit part players at Manchester United. Absolutely right. Like it or not, these are the truth. This is the truth of it. People are turning down huge money and starting roles in Saudi to stay in Europe. Why? Because it's a bigger thing to them. It means more to them, even if it's less in some ways of time and money and all of that. Like, you wouldn't go to why? Otherwise, everybody would choose Saudi. It's automatic starting minutes and automatic money. Why? Because there's more prestige for playing where they are in Europe. It's just the reality of it. So there we are. That's what we've got on that. That's just what I want to discuss. These are the reasons these things happen. Am I saying that that's right? Am I saying that makes them great players or whatever? No, and I'm not comparing them to anybody else. It's just, you know, that's the unfortunate reality of where we're at. And the reason for it is the big contracts and things running down and, you know, extending players and doing things like that. McTominay's an academy kid too, and I think that matters as well. I don't think you just treat them like shit because you want them out, especially coming in. I mean, you can look at Chelsea. They're doing it. If you want a model, you can easily switch over to be a fan of Chelsea, where they treat their academy products like shit, toss them in the trash, sign 8 more players, and have a total mess that isn't going anywhere after new owners come in and just completely trash any form of connection between the club. You can do that if you want. You know, you're entitled at any point in time. United probably won't be that way ever. So that's that. Okay. Let's move on. Understood. Everybody knows the squad isn't good enough. They're separate issues. The separate thing that I wanted to mention was the cost approach that obviously Ineos are taking. We've seen this with, of course, it's extreme. I'm using an extreme example to demonstrate the depths that can go, you know, for sure. But, you know, a lot of clubs have struggled to pay players off. A lot of teams have struggled to push players out and while treating them well. And there's a very few that are willing to dive into the depths of, you know, treating them poorly to get people gone and all of that. So I don't think United will be one of those. We let Varane go. We let Martial go. We will let these players go next year, you know. Yeah, Juventus put 8 players up for sale, and they're still trying to sell Chiesa, you know. It's not that easy, and you don't know what wages they're on. You don't know the details. It's not that easy. So in terms of this cost approach, the way that United have looked at the costs, the way that the new management has looked at the costs, I've mentioned this before, that Barada's like the no guy, right? He's the guy who would say no. He's the guy who will put the cap on things. That's his approach. He did it at City. And the way that they will look at it with every player is if they really like somebody, then they'll say, all right, well, what's the value of that player? And then they're not going to go above that, because that's where you make mistakes, right? You know, that's where you've made loads of mistakes. Pellistri, Hannibal, we could talk about that in a second, actually. Good point. You can't solve everything in one window, and we're not going to. But this new cost approach is the difference between, I mean, we could go through examples every summer, right? We paid too much for Anthony. We paid too much for Casemiro. And we probably paid too much for Mason Mount. We probably paid too much for Rasmus Højlund. We probably paid too much for Onana. You know, given the situations, in an ideal circumstance, you say, this is our target. This is their value. We've got another alternative option. Otherwise, at this value, and another one at this value, and another one at this value. And you go down your assessments that way. Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, every problem that we have in terms of amortizations, things like that, that absolutely, and it's not insulting the players, because there are good players in there, you know? There are good players in there. I don't think we paid too much for Euro, but we'll go back to that. There are good players in there. It's not insulting Højlund. It's not insulting Onana. It's not insulting Maguire. I rate him. But you end up in a situation where the player, if it doesn't work, you can't turn around and do anything about it. And if they don't, you know, if you buy a player for 30 million on 80K, then in 2 years, you could sell them for 15 to 20, you don't take a loss. You can't do that if you bought them for 50. And so that's where it becomes a problem, and you get stuck where it just didn't work out. They just weren't good enough, but now we can't do anything about it. We're stuck until we're a year left. And then you have this issue of the plus ones. You see, it's a compounding issue that adds up. And it's the same thing here. It's the same thing here. They look at targets and say, okay, we really like Gerard Braithwaite, but we're not paying more than 55, because if we pay 70 or 80, not only does it hamstring us, but it's probably not the best bang for buck. You know, like, what's the best value per dollar that we can get? That's not it. So they say, all right, our valuation of Braithwaite, which we talked about leading up to the window, was probably around 50 million. And that is where they ended. And they walked away from the talks, not walked away from the player, but walked away from the discussions once they reached over that amount of money. Same thing for Ugarte. We've seen that, right? They really like Ugarte. He's our top target in the midfield now. But they weren't going to pay 60 million euros. They never were going to pay that. Their top end was in that 40 to 50 bracket, probably with some add-ons on top of that. Not on top of that, but making up maybe to 45, 50. So they're not going to pay it if that cost doesn't come down. They will just walk away. We've seen that approach there. Same thing, as I've mentioned, why Ligt hasn't happened as of yet. Because they're not going to sit there and say, good, you still want 50 plus 10 for him? We're not paying 50 plus 10. Our valuation of Ligt, when we have to factor in wages and everything that's in there, is probably around 40 million euros. If you're going to accept him for that, then we will buy him for that. Otherwise, I don't think we will. Joshua Zirkzee is you know, Joshua Zirkzee is a player that they thought was an incredible opportunity. An incredible opportunity at the cost of his release clause, 33 million pounds for an exceptional young player, so that even with the agent fees on top, it was worth it, because it was about 45 million pounds or so is what they end up paying. Value there. That is great value for the young player of the year in Serie A, right? Top striker in a position of need with a profile that they don't have. Those are all big difference. Lodge, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, Christian. Do you think we will sign any more players? Yes, and we will get to that. We will, for sure. We will get to that. So that was an opportunity. Euro was... Yeah, it does get kind of boring. Euro, again, an unmissable opportunity. What's the value? And it's about evaluation, right? David De Gea signed for Fiorentina. Well, good for him. I'm glad he's got back into football, right? Okay. Euro was... Man, some of you so negative. So negative, I just have to time you out for that. That's crazy. That is crazy. That's such a crazy way to view things. Come on. Wake up. Exactly. Realist. It's not sympathizing. It's realism. It's understanding what's actually going on a bit. And I'm not happy with all of it, but some of it's just the reality. But yeah, in terms of Euro, viewed as an unmissable opportunity. So they pay 60 million euros for him. Okay. What was Rafael Varane worth? What was he worth when we missed him before? What was it worth when we missed him compared to getting Phil Jones in as the alternative, right? What was it worth? A lot. A top center back in these kind of markets is probably worth 80 to 100 million. It's a good value. But it's also wages. He's not going to be paying 250 a week for him and all of that. So, yeah. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. There's no doubt about it. These are the challenges. But he was worth it, so they paid it. So this is the same thing with the players they're looking at. Mazraoui, they'd be happy to pay 15 million for him because he's at that valuation. So now they're looking at targets that are in the value, and that's just how it's going to be. One of the things they don't want to do, again, that I will say, is make mistakes this summer because they didn't get everybody in so early, because transfer windows are prepared for a year plus ahead of time in terms of lining up all these options. So you say, okay, we won't get Ugarte. Well, we should have this option, this option, this option, this option. We won't get Euro. We should have this option, this option. We won't get Braithwaite. And you have all these options with all of these different valuations, right? And they haven't had the time to line that up for United. That's just the reality. They haven't. They haven't had the time to line it up for United to in 100% to where they can do everything, right? But they're doing a good job. So they got 2 top targets in. They'd rather not buy anyone that's just trash, on a huge fee that they don't value relative. I say trash. What I mean is relative value, where they say we value them at 30, but we have to pay 50 just because we need somebody. That becomes a problem later on because they're unprepared just due to the time of getting into the club. So by next year, when they have all of this time, they want to have the ability and the wherewithal to spend what they can and to be open and to have a lot more power in the market there, where they have it all lined up and they have everything that they need. They don't want to fill it up with panic opportunities where they're spending too much money. So that's the view of it. Cost approach. Yes, they would rather sign nobody than pay well over value for players that they're not 100% on. That's the point. And that is one of the differences between now and in the past, because saying, well, fuck, we need somebody in now is how we end up with Casemiro, where now we cannot do anything about that, right? We cannot sell him, and it is holding up our whole summer in the midfield because we cannot do anything about it because of the fee we paid and the wages we paid. Not to mention Antony, which we haven't even discussed, right? What that has done to the finances of the club and what it has held us back from doing. This is exactly how that happens, right? This is exactly how that happens, is that you get to these points and people are panicking and saying, God, we need a signing in the door. Fans, but the people in the club were operating just as haphazardly and insanely as we are as fans. Now, we have a right to as fans, so I'm not criticizing you. We have a right to. That's what we're here for, to panic, to react, to be emotional, to do everything. But the club can't operate that way. That's my explanation, okay? So I'm not trying to do, to give you to say you can't feel this way. You can't be disappointed. You can't be upset. You can't worry. You can't be saying, I demand signings. But understand that they shouldn't be emotional. They shouldn't be like us, okay, if they want to operate correctly. So that's my hope, is that they won't, and the way that they've been approaching things, they haven't so far. So that was my, I think I've gotten through my 36 minutes of ranting here, and I hope that it's been an enjoyable conversation, that part of it, before I move into the next stuff, okay? But yeah, again, give me your thoughts on it. I appreciate it, I really do. But I hope that I've made myself clear in terms of, the reality of it, of the situation. Because, I've said before that I don't think that success under Ineos to start is going to be, in the initial way, the same as what people think. I don't think success means what, there's different measures of success at this point in time. The long term, we all want the same thing. But getting there, some of the things that don't look like success are the right options, are the right choices. And sometimes, it's the road not taken that matters. All right. Give me 1 second. So, Sander Berge. This is such an interesting name to me. Hold on 1 sec. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just going to tweet something again real quick just to re-encourage people to join. And while you're here, yes, like some people have said, which is very kind of you, hit a like on the thing. We always get a lot of video viewers, a lot of people watching. Hit a like on the video so more people see it. So it helps the algorithm and all of that. Always appreciated, all of you. All right. Let's go. Okay. So, Sander Berge. Yeah, look at that. See, it goes from 90 to like 120 something. Okay, Sander Berge. Now, no. Hold on a second. I watched a video of someone asking Sander Berge how to pronounce his name. Okay, I watched a video of people asking him how to pronounce his name, and so I'm saying it's Sander Berge because he gave like 3 different ways of saying it in that interview and said that it's fine. And Berge is okay. It's easiest for me to say Berge, so I'm gonna say Berge. All right. I swear I watched a video with Sky or something like that, and and that's what he said. So I'm going with his approval on pronouncing it, Sander Berge. Now I don't have the accent in the same way as the person who said it, but so be it. I'm gonna stick with that because it's the easiest. I know it could be, something else. Yeah, I don't know why my thing switches colors. It's kind of annoying. Berge, Berg. I know Berg, Berge. People say it different ways. I'm telling you, there's an interview, and he says you could say it all sorts of different ways. So let's talk about him. This is an interesting one because obviously, no critique. It's all good. Duncan Castles, again, big credit to him. He's, he was out for a long time with the guy who he did his podcast with, who passed away, which, obviously hit him pretty hard. And then, so he hasn't been really in reporting, and he came back, this summer to do more and start a new podcast and all that. And, and he posted that information in his podcast about, Ugarte and some of the alternatives, and mentioned Sander Berge. And a few other names, Joey Veerman, all of that too. There was others in there also, right? Some conversations with Rabiot, which I did understand were true. United have made contact with people around Rabiot. It was unlikely to happen, but they had made some contact with people around him. And he got a spot on there, right? PSG not coming down on the price, United being forced to look at alternatives. And Sander Berge is an interesting one. So as I understand it right now, I spoke to a couple different people about this, and I'm kind of mid following up on this after something that was told to me yesterday as well. The initial context when it kind of started coming out, when David Ornstein gave his thing on Monday, or was it saying Monday or Tuesday, whichever it was, saying, that United were looking elsewhere from Ugarte, and then there was talk of Sander Berge and all that. As I understand it, as of that point in time, United had just made some initial contacts with his agent. They hadn't committed to saying, yes, we're going to go for him. Yes, we want to sign you. Are you coming? And he hadn't said, yes, I'm coming to United or anything like that at that point in time. It was still in the preliminary stages. But that contact had started. And it's interesting because for a while, Berge is definitely somebody club-wise that they've watched in the past. I'm focusing on him only because, in particular, there's virtually no mention of many of these other midfielders, right? When you talk about, like, Fofana, very conflicting stuff here. A lot of people mentioning Fofana for United, and a lot of people saying no and saying there's nothing in it at all, right? So it's very conflicting there, and that's where, my info on it was that he was just a name, but that they weren't particularly that high on. On Zubimendi, it was an interesting one a little earlier in this week, because I had mentioned to, in the Patreon area, that I was following up on something that I'd heard on this, because it was a little bit iffy, Zubimendi. It was iffy what I'd heard. And then there was some stuff floating around of United making an offer and all of that. I checked it out, and I was told that by sources at United, they were not aware of an offer from United for Zubimendi. From very, very good sources at United that I pretty much trust implicitly, that as of that time, there was no offer for Zubimendi. He was just still a name on the list, so I dialed it back and said, okay, I'm not going to go with anything on this. And I'm glad I didn't, because literally not 10 minutes later, Liverpool are like busting down the door to sign him. So I'm very glad that I did the due diligence on that, because I could have said something there too. And I think someone was playing games, basically. Maybe on his side or the club side or something like that, or Liverpool. Who knows? How sometimes these rumors get around really funny, and that was a pretty funny one. I thought that was an amusing situation, because I was just being told no, it's not, and I said, all right, I'm not gonna go on this, and then immediately after that, Liverpool story breaks, and I was like, that was a good that was a good miss there. That was close. So there's that. There was one other name I wanted to mention. Shoot. I'll get back to it. So on Sander Berge, yes, he got mentioned by in the Athletic. Laurie, I have good context saying that there was some context being made and that it did happen. Ornstein, I mean, everybody has mentioned him, and so it seems to be a genuine target. Rios was the other one, and I'll come back to that, 50. Thank you. Because on Rios, when there was a bunch of rumors that United had made an offer, that was not true. With the South American players, it's always a little bit interesting, because it kind of floats around like the interest is kind of there, but it was not nearly as advanced as people were acting like it was. Look at that thing you got. I made this little badge. Sorry, I got distracted, because I made those badges like ages ago. It's a bronze Malasia, and I think it's because you've been a member now for a month. So the badges upgrade, and then there'll be like, you get different choices, I think, and there's a silver and a gold and other thing for people who are in the members. So a little extra incentive to pay me some money per month on YouTube is to get these cool badges. I can't remember who's in silver. I know there's like a Rooney in there, and there's some other legends, and you get like little different icons and things. Anyway, sorry. So on Sander Berge, there is legitimacy to this one. That's why I mention it. I think he'd be available around 25 to 30 million would be the cost. A gold Mainu one. I need to add Kobe Mainu. Good point. I have mods, but they're busy with the Discord, and they also can be here. So anyway, sorry, getting distracted. I got distracted by the little badge, because I have never actually seen anyone have it before, even though I set it up a long time ago. Berge is a legitimate name and is the one that seems to kind of go around most of the time. Now, I spoke to somebody yesterday and again today, and a person that I trust who is close to certain players and as he was actually one of the people that first clued me into Gerard Braithwaite over a year ago on United being very interested in him. He was actually the same person who clued me into that, and it was a very, very good source. And there's definitely talk, among people that around Berge that this maybe is starting to move ahead a little bit. So I'm still checking it out. I'm being a little non-committal there because I've been playing it a little safe because it's been chaotic for sure, but I also don't want to say something that just isn't true. And so I've been checking it out a bit more and following up on this to see if it has actually advanced. But there are some indications from things around him that he may be feeling that it is moving forward, or it is advancing, or that it is moving to the next step. I didn't say it would be 30 million. I'm just saying I think that's, perhaps in the range of what they might ask for, and you could probably do a structured deal and all of that. So Sander Berge could be a genuine target. So I wanted to compare some things here. So let's pull this up. So we moved from Ugarte to Sander Berge. That's why I have these two on the screen now. And there are similarities between the two of them that I want to explain. And there's things that are definitely dissimilar, for sure. But I can actually kind of understand why. We could do Zubamendi after, yeah. I can kind of understand why they would go for him. I would understand why they'd be interested in him. I do think he's profile-wise probably a good partner for Kobbie Mainoo. So a couple of things I want to highlight first. Let me see if I can click and get my mouse to show up. Yeah, there it is. So passing. Manuel Ugarte is a more safe passer. You can see passing percentage. These are percentiles of their passing percentage, right? Neither are super progressive with their passing in terms of total volume. Now, this is not possession adjusted, right? So PSG having more possession. Over here, you can't really read it. It says progressive passing ratio. Ugarte is in the bottom. Berge is not high up, okay? Progressive distance. Berge is actually higher than Ugarte. So even though they have the ball left, he is a bit more progressive than Ugarte. But I would not say that Sander Berge is a creative player. He is not breaking the lines with his passing and sending them all through together, all of that, okay? That is not his strength. That is not where Sander Berge is at his best. Progressive carries, they're both good on the ball. Again, possession adjusted, Sander Berge is actually very, very good carrying the ball forward. Here's where there's the differences, right? Defensive actions, tackles won, interceptions. Ugarte is at the top of all of these things. He's a high volume defensive midfielder. He's going to chase around dog players and do that. Now, I like that personally, and I think he's still a better player than people are giving him credit for, but I understand why people also would see that as risky, right? That I get. In terms of take-on percentages, both, again, good carrying of the ball. Long ball percentages, both quite high up here. Ugarte also a competent long ball passer, so is Sander Berge. Long ball completions, this is, again, possession would help here a little bit. So on the ball, they're actually really similar. Neither are going to progress the ball with passing that much, but they're both good with long balls, pretty decent passers, good carriers. But defensively and out of possession, here's the big difference. Ugarte is more of a chaser, and Sander Berge is not so much in terms of volume. And then here, this is the big one. Berge is a more high percentage tackler, so takes less risks, hence he has a lot less volume of stats. And aerial duels. So percentage-wise, Sander Berge is not amazing in his percentages, but in terms of how many he wins, he challenges a lot and has a good percentage. Very good aerial player when compared to Ugarte, right? He is. He's a good player. He's an intelligent player in that vein. So I can see why they'd want Sander Berge. I get it. It makes sense to me. And I could see how he could properly partner Kobbie Mainoo in there. Height, winning the balls, a bit more defensively disciplined, can pass it around, can hit that switch. You know, one of the things that we've seen with, for example, Casemiro in the preseason and some of the way we plays is that big long switch. Something Casemiro actually is good at. Berge probably can hit that big long switch to the opposite wing. He is competent to play that ball. So it makes a lot of sense to me. I get it. Now, is Sander Berge the long-term starting number 6? Probably not. But if we cannot buy that player this summer, we aren't convinced of that unmissable opportunity at the 6 right now. Is he a good option? I think absolutely. That it would add something, height to the midfield. Look at the height of the signings we've made. Xerxes and Euro, tall players, and Berge could do that. Berge could be that guy. You know, and so, you know, I like it. I like the idea of it. I think you're buying him where next year you get a better 6. I've said it before, Adam Wharton, right? If next year they really want Adam Wharton, then go big next year, go small this year, buy him, and then push him to depth when you make your signing next season, and push him in there. And Sander Berge could play as an 8 and 6. He could play in different ways. So I like it a lot. I like it. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think given the difficulties we've had in selling, with McTominay, with Casemiro, it's a plan that makes sense to me. If we get Berge, Ten Hag will play him at 9. Hey, if he offers something off of set pieces, I'm okay with that. Sander Berge stats here, you know, compared, not high volume here. Good pass completion, good carrying, good defensive numbers. See, clearances and aerials. So I get it, and you don't worry about. I mean, I'm not telling you not to look at all this. I'm just saying it's not what you worry about. You could click on Zubimendi here. Different type of player, similar in some ways, even lower on the tackles, lower on carrying, more of a passer. But we'll compare him on the other side. Sander Berge here, obviously we can see where he plays, you know, around in a high possession system with Burnley, to be fair. Last year was kind of interesting. Now there's a place here where it says injuries. Positioning and long balls is what his strength is. Now I would say that's true. I mean, I know you don't take these things too seriously when they say this, but I like that. But that seems pretty accurate. Is there anything on here that says injuries? I don't know. How old is he? 26, 6'5". Not bad, right? Not bad. So yeah, I think he's a sensible player. Now, who else could we compare to? I could compare him to, like, you guys wanted Zubimendi, so let's compare him to Zubimendi. It might dump half my stats here, unfortunately. Oh, it didn't dump half my stats. Awesome. Okay. So I haven't looked at this. So Zubimendi's good in the air too. Berge is a bit better. If you look here, this is where Zubimendi's going to win. Progressive passing, progressive distances, much more of a passer. Possession adjusted, though, Sander Berge makes more tackles, more long balls. Zubimendi's a good player for sure, but I think he's even less combative, and Sander Berge is not that combative as compared to Ugarte, but I think Zubimendi's even less combative. Good player. United were interested. The issue was definitely the cost. 60 million euros up front on that, you know, on that thing, on the release clause. And I know that United were concerned with that. Do I have the right Fofana? Apologies if I don't. This one might dump my stats because he's a CM. Yeah, see. The reason is because Yusuf Fofana is classified as a center mid. It's going to change all of this. because it's going to do the percentiles wrong. Fofana is wild because obviously his stats show up incredible. Definitely not a defensive midfielder. He, look at shot. Like, you look at the things that show up for him. Shots, XG chain, box entries. That's not where I want my number 6, to be quite honest. Who's another one who's, like, actually a defensive midfielder? Cardoso. I know that a lot of people have talked about him. I don't believe United have any interest for what it's worth. But I should be able to pull up stats from him. I know he's kind of a bit of the hipster name. I'm not saying he's not good. He might not actually be in here as of yet. Yeah, because he's not qualified in a position. Who did I want to look at? I can't do Veerman or Rios because they're not in the top 5 leagues. It won't compare properly. It won't compare. Wharton, I don't think he's gonna be in here as a center mid. Same issue because it's very recent transfer. I'm not going to be able to find him in the same way, unfortunately. Let me think. We could go Anton Stack. Am I pronouncing that right? And again, there's no links to him, so that ends up being a little... We could do Casemiro. Good point. We should compare him to Casemiro. Anton Stack. Look, why is every one of your guys' hipster 6s show up at the top of the progressive passing chart? Can we not? I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but can we not just have like a 6 that's like a 6? Can we not just have like a midfielder that's just okay? He's not a 6. Well, fair enough then. Can we not just have a midfielder that just is a defensive midfielder? Do they have to be a number 10 also? Do they have to? Woke nonsense. I'm tired of it. I am tired of it. Can't do a Yeoman either. But look at that. Casemiro, look at his progressive distance, guys. Look at his progressive distance. This is your 6. Right? This is who you want. This is who you want. If Casemiro was playing somewhere else, people would be looking at his stats and saying, "Oh my God, what a player that is. We should sign Casemiro." That's what people would be doing because he's so progressive with his passing, because he's going to move the ball forward. Give me a break, That's what happens. They take risks. They take insane amounts of risks. See? And that's why this can, stats are definitely not everything. You're right. He does, though. All Casemiro does is make progressive passes. Watch him. Watch him play in preseason. That's all he does. He gets the ball and thumps it. First time blind pass down the channel, Thump it. All right, let me pull up. You're right. Let me pull up stats. If we're doing DMs, then I shouldn't lose everything. Now I can't remember all the stats that I had here. P adjusted. We were going tackles. We were going P adjusted. Interceptions, recoveries. Oh, and then aerials. We were looking at aerials. Aerial duels, blah. Aerial duels 1. Well, let's look at that. This nonsense. Pass percentage. See. Better carrier of the ball too. Tackles attempted. Where's tackles attempted? Did I not put tackles attempted on here? Good point. If it's not on here, let me add it. Tackles attempted. Yes. You are right. Tackles attempted is the one that I wanted to get in here. Yes. Good point. Good point. All right. Look at the tackles attempted. Look at that. Casemiro's flying all over the place. Wins a lot of tackles too. And that would be the concern with Ugarte for sure. But the difference with Ugarte is he's not throwing the ball around. But I agree. I mean, that was why people had concerns with Ugarte, understandably. Casemiro is good in the air, though. Good in the air. But they've won the same amount. Yeah, good in the air. That is one thing that Casemiro is still quite good at. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Yeah, pointless slides that leave you open is not a stat on here. I wish it were, but unfortunately it's not. Holy crap, it's been almost an hour. All right, that's fine. I still have time. I was going to look at one more person. Yeah, I can't do Yeoman. Oh, João Gomez. Good call. Good call. I think he's a DM on here. I have to search Gomez because it's got a little thingy, so it's hard for me to type it. Oh, shit. Just going to switch it. My bad, guys. The reasons I want Stack is his defensive contribution, top of the charts, interceptions, tackles combined, all of that. Okay. Look, João Gomez is a defensive I know he's not showing up on here, but he's a lot more similar. He's a good presser. He does tackle a lot. He's a bit more destroyer, for sure. You know, his in possession is a little bit weak. So, yeah, that would be my concerns there. Okay, let's move back off of this. So, anyway, I think that was a good demonstration. I think that was a good part of our discussion here. I think it was. Yeah, I think that Sander Berge is a disciplined player, a disciplined defender who's not rushing out of his position too often. I think he's more competent on the ball than he's getting credit for. Same with Ugarte, to be fair. I think they're quite similar. They can hit the long balls. They can, you know, they can hit the long balls, the switches. They're not going to progress the play very much through passing. They can dribble and carry well, but he is taller and is more safe than Ugarte. So, you know, I'm not saying I don't think he's as good a player personally, and I think that's why we're targeting Ugarte. But I get it. I get it. And I think he's a good player who could next year be a good backup. United are interested. I'm following up on this one to see if they are indeed pressing ahead, because there's some indication that they might be, but I want to confirm it. The same as I mentioned with the Zubamendi thing. I just like to be careful with these things because there's a lot of stuff about this. Yeah. Physical monster. Raising the physical floor of the club, too, is to me a huge, huge positive that I cannot get around. As people said, no injuries, height, lack of injuries, physical floor. Big things United have been missing. Rios, I don't know anything really specific about him aside from United were interested. When there was all the talk of the offers before and I checked it out, I was told, like, not a big deal. They're interested, but at that time, nothing serious. And a lot of the hype was just about the Copa and all that. So, yeah, stockpiling 6-foot players. I like it. I like it. All right, cool. Let's move on to center backs. Whew. All right. On the right back front, we've talked about the reasons that Wan-Bissaka may not leave. If he doesn't, then Mazraoui probably won't come in. Obviously, I think that's pretty obvious. But the deal is pretty much all set for Mazraoui if he does agree to go to West Ham. It's really that simple. We need big, large men, no Diddy in the team. Yeah, good work. But yes, we need that. We need that. If Wan-Bissaka doesn't leave, then obviously it's not going to happen. If he does, then it will. Now, there's obviously been talk as well about this swap deal between Inter and United on Dumfries and Wan-Bissaka. I don't think United are super keen on that, to be honest. You know, and I can't blame them. We've talked about this before. I don't think anybody really wants Denzel Dumfries in this team. You know, he is a name I had on the list of right backs for a long time because he is, and he's been on the list, but mostly, I'm not going to say it because then people will just give me a hard time about it. He's not someone that everybody really likes. And, yeah, I don't think they're too keen on that, on getting stuck into that. I think they'd probably rather keep Wan-Bissaka. I can't say that for sure. You know, if it all breaks down, what would happen? If someone else comes in for Wan-Bissaka and he moves, then Mazraoui could be done pretty quickly. He could, but otherwise probably not. Now, yeah, I'm not gonna say that, Hamza. You could do the math. You could do the math. Yes, Mazraoui also can cover left back. Now, look, but here's another factor in that. Good point. Okay, and this is what we don't know. De Ligt. We've talked about this cost approach. Today, Bayern out of the race for Jonathan Tah, according to some of these reports in Germany. Today, it's now apparently unlikely that Leverkusen will sell him to Bayern. That was supposedly their De Ligt replacement. That was supposedly how this was going to happen. That's off the table. the whole beginning I spoke about the Wan-Bissaka thing. I know that they're saying they're still in for him. I know, but you're starting to get people saying that they're not. I'm not saying everybody's saying that, but there are, Kicker is very good, I believe, for some of the German clubs. It's really hard with the German newspapers. Usually they're pretty well aligned, but I know that Kicker is a very good source of where it came from. That that Ta would not be happening, but we'll see, right? I don't know enough to say which is correct or not, but there's certainly some conflicting reports on this, and we don't know yet. It is concerning though, but at the same time, regardless of all of that, it still comes down to, will Bayern give United a better price or not? United were expecting to go back for a bid this week, but I'm not sure if they feel like there's any point if they're not going to drop the price on it. If not, then I could see us perhaps going for, what if we go for Mazraoui because he can play on the left as a backup left? He can't play at center back, but then you could have Shaw at left center back as a backup option, and Mazraoui could play on the left. I'm just saying it gives you a little flexibility still by bringing him in. So I don't know. On that front, if that becomes an opportunity, or if they switch to one of these other players that we haven't heard a lot about, frankly, but we'd heard a little before, like Hansko, if they cannot get the Ligt. But I really don't believe, if you take the line that I've been saying, and that was pretty much in that Ornstein thing on Ugarte, that, they're just not going to go for players that above the value. It's that simple. It doesn't really matter who. Braithwaite was their top target. They offered £50 million max. Are they going to make that same offer for De Ligt, who's obviously not valued at that, and who's had some bad injuries, and who's probably going to be behind Lenny Euro when he comes in? I don't think so. They're probably going to stick to their max valuation, and it's up to Bayern to accept it. Okay? So there's definitely things holding this up. It's starting to look like a midfielder might be what we get in and not the other positions, which I'm okay with. I've said that many times. I don't understand how we weren't getting a midfielder already, but I'd be quite happy if we ended up with just a midfielder and nobody else. Am I saying that it's enough? Am I saying that it means we're going to compete for the league? Am I saying that that's all the business we should have done and it's all great? No. Am I happy with the business we would do? Absolutely. And then next year, with players moving for free, Lindelof, Wan-Bissaka, maybe McTominay, and our financial situation a lot better, a year of preparation, we go bigger. And I would really like to see this team improve. I know that people don't agree. I wouldn't say nobody, because I think there are plenty of people who do agree with this opinion. But I think that barring major injuries, which we'll talk about, the team is a hell of a lot better than what we got last year. It's a hell of a lot better. Yeah, I hear you, Harry and Lissandro, for Brentford away 4-0, but that's like different. It's different. It was a different phase, different time, different everything. But we certainly would likely need more. How is it better in terms of quality? All right, I'm going to give you 8 players that we did not have for the bulk of last season for one reason or another. Xerxes and Euro, Ahmad, Sancho, Kobbie Mainoo, Luke Shaw. Do I have 8? I'm trying to remember the other ones. Mason Mount. And if we sign a midfielder, then we would have 8. We would have 8, okay? 8 players. More. Lissandro's the other one. 9. If we sign a midfielder, we would have 9. And we would have 9 more players than we had for the bulk of last season. Understand that for a minute. 9 more if those don't have, and I'll talk about injuries. Luke Shaw's not really injured. Hold on. I will talk about that more. 9 more players if we don't have major injuries. Lissandro is out with a one-time thing. He's fine. He's not injury prone. Ahmad had a big impact injury, right? Sancho was in the mountains. Xerxes a signing. Euro's a signing. Kobbie Mainoo had a big impact injury. He's healthy, right? Not injury prone. Mason Mount, we'll see. Okay. To be fair, him and Sancho, we have questions. You know, I'm just saying it's 9 players. Sancho, Xerxes, Ahmad, Mount, Mainoo, Lissandro, Euro. You could almost build an entire team. Shaw, in my opinion. So anyway, I know that's not popular, but I believe it. It should be fine now. Is it a freeze? It should be back. It should be back. I'm not seeing any issues on my side. Let me know if it clears up, okay? It's better? It's better? Okay. Yeah, I don't know what happened. It says excellent connection on my side. Nothing. It's all good? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's clear? All right. Plus, we replaced all the coaches, medical staff, redoing Carrington. Anyway, all I'm saying is you could end up with almost 9. I mean, look, let me ask you guys a question. All right, here's a crazy question. Sancho, Xerxes, Ahmad, Mount, Mainoo, Berge, Lissandro, Euro, Shaw, and then throw in Onana and Dalot. How good is that team? How good is that team? Okay, how good is that team? How good is that team? That's actually a very good team. That's actually a very good team. That's a team that could get you top 6. You know, I think that's a good team. But that's just what you lost. That's just what you lost. That's what you didn't have. So you still have Rashford, Garnacho, Højlund, Bruno, Maguire, and on top of that, like, that's just what you lost. That's crazy. Anyway, I digress. Let's see what happens there. It's really going to be down to Bayern dropping. You know, it's going to be down to Bayern dropping their price, and if they don't, then so be it. And we'll see where they move on next. They're not already injured. Let's talk about injuries. Harry Maguire's left out as a precaution. He's fine. He's not injured. Lindelof was left out. He's not injured. Luke Shaw's, as I understand it, not injured. There's a difference between not injured and not fit. Okay? Who is the other one? Wan-Bissaka? Again, same thing. With the travel, with preseason, with players returning, it's essentially as simple as they're not necessarily fit enough where they want to take a risk on them right now for a friendly. If it was the Premier League and if it was an important game, they'd be playing, okay? That's the way that I understand it. There's some more details that I have that I cannot say, but I think they're okay. And it's just about not taking risks. We saw that earlier. Marcus Rashford missed a few days of training and a game. He was fine. Maguire, same thing. It is what it is. You know, we'd like to have a good community shield and win and, you know, have more bragging rights on City, but, you know, that happens. It's all good. Yeah, players are rarely fully fit in the league, sure. Correct. But you don't risk them in preseason when they're not fully fit, when they're not 100%. You think this window is a good? Come on, man. I know. I explained my reason why. Is it good in a vacuum? No. Is it good within the context? Yes. And I'll say why. Two really good players in. If we add a midfielder, then we can have a good team. We'll have bought young, high potential players that are going to improve. We will not have renewed any stupid contracts. We will not have spent enormous sums on aging players that hamstring us. And we will be lined up regardless of everything for next year to be able to sign 3-4 big players to essentially finish the starting 11 and push some players to depth. So in the vein of an overall progress, then it was a good year. That's what I would say. Then it would be a good window. In the context of everything that's happened, then it is a good window. It's good decisions. There are good things happening. It is progress towards it. And that's what Jim Ratcliffe has always said that I think people continue to ignore, is that there's a reason it's going to take 3 years. They know it because of these things that keep happening that people are upset about were predictable. That doesn't mean you can prevent them, but they were predictable. Okay, does that mean it's good enough for United? Does that mean we're there? No, but they were long-term decisions, and in the short term, yeah, there might be more pain. I'm sorry, there might be. I'm ready. I'm settled in for that. I am. I'm ready to suffer a little bit this year. I just am, okay? I know many people don't want to, but I am. I am ready to suffer a little bit. I'm ready in that vein, but I would like to see progress in certain areas. Question, do MUFC have, let me answer questions now. Do we have the money to buy without sales without affecting PSR? Obviously it affects PSR and FFP. We can buy without sales, but it's limited how much we can do. And then it also will have an effect on next window. So they want to do it again if it's something that meets their values. They've had some identification of why there were so many injuries for sure, and have taken some steps to correct it. With the way they're rehabbing, with again things like keeping players out instead of them playing, other similar factors for sure have tied into all of that. Palistri and Hannibal, thank you for reminding me. I think both will probably go if teams have to present themselves, but I think they're looking for both to potentially go on similar deals to Kambuala and Alvaro Fernandez. So I think we could see those still happen. There's Scottish teams in for Hannibal. There's others, Spanish and a Greek team in for Palistri. So we'll see. Yeah. We would gain if we sold Hannibal. The issue is he's had very little good first team football, and so we may have to look at another loan. I don't believe Shaw has an injury. I think he's not fit at the moment after returning, and maybe it's like a minor concern or a worry because he'd been returning from injury and all of that, and they're being extra careful. But I don't think there's like a new injury or something like that that's with these guys. That's not what I'm hearing. I agree with you on the Ligt thing. Does United leadership expect top 4? Not necessarily. I'm not saying that they don't want top 4. They don't think it's possible. But I don't think it has to be top 4. I think there's a lot that has to go into it. Won't be too long before you start blaming the gaffer. Well, he has to prove it too. He does. He's got to do better with the team, with setting it up. I like certain things that I saw in preseason. He's got to prove it just like we asked players to prove it. Don't set up the midfield to be wide open. That would be priority number 1 for me. And if he can do that, then it'll be better. I got 2 in a row. Defending Ten Hag. You will be the first on Ten Hag blaming him for this when the season goes wrong and blame him and not have patience. Depends. There's differences in performance. If you take this team and it performs like last year, then yes, it is on the manager. That's a fact. You have to understand that. If this team performs like last year while fit, then it is on the manager setting the team up poorly. There are mistakes the manager made. He's getting time to correct it. He will have the season to correct it. He will have the ability to show that. He's there. He has the support. Okay? His future right now is not in question. So he will have the chance to prove that he is a good manager also. They will both. He has that job. So if he can fix the midfield, if he can organize and set things up better, we will perform better. I'm not asking to win everything. I'm not expecting a title challenge. What I want is I don't want us to be wide open in the midfield to concede the most shots of any team in the Premier League. That's what I want to see. I want to see progress in how we play. I'd be very patient in that respect. Very patient in that respect. But you can, you're awful by the, well, look, they're just giving their opinion. I don't think they're insulting me. Well, maybe they were a little bit, but, they're still here and watching and giving me money, so thank you. I mean, look, you can have different opinions to me. Everybody does. That's okay. It's all good. You were on him. He had a part to play in the injuries. He was pushing for players to return before they were ready. Managers do that, but he had a part to play in it. Our training schedules have been changed. Our way we're running players have been changed. He had a part to play in that. The style of play that requires players to go up and down, that has an effect on injuries too. He has a part to play in it. He does have a part to play in it. Nothing's his fault. It is. But it's not 100%. There's a lot of moving parts in this. There are, and he had a part to play in that, and he had a part to play in the good. And I'm not giving him credit for the FA Cup and saying, but he's not to blame for any of the things that go bad. Obviously, he showed with winning the FA Cup, he could have done better last year. He could have done better last year. He could have set the team up differently the whole season. Obviously, come on, you know. Players are very much to blame too. So is the club. So are so many people. But it's never 100% game. There's no everything. It's all areas of gray. It's all shades of gray. Eriksson will probably stay and then leave next year because what else can he do? Yeah. What else can he do? There's no point there. Yeah. Europa League will have more games. Yes, and one of the things I will say is when you compare the teams in the Europa League, we should win it. That to me is something that we should be in that discussion for winning the Europa League. We totally should. We totally should. So, all right. I think that's it. 2:21. We're going to see, or 2:21 my time. It's been an hour and 21 minutes. 9 something for you guys. Thank you. He's allowed to share his opinion different to mine, guys. He's allowed. It's all right. Tomorrow I'll do a video in the morning, pre-match, who we might expect to start, see if anything else comes out. Saturday, the Community Shield, I will do a watch along on that same platform I've been doing them on. It's been a lot of fun, and this will be at a time you all can watch. So please come on down and watch it with me. It is a lot of fun. We will enjoy it. We will be there. We will enjoy it. It'll be fun. So make sure to do that. I'll post the link under tomorrow's video once I've scheduled it. Again, this is a cool platform. When the Premier League launches, it will launch. It's always free. It's all of that. There's no ads. There's no nothing. A lot of fun, and it's going to have some really cool features. So make sure to do that. Anyway, that's it. Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching. This was a good one. I had a lot of fun this stream. I hope you guys did as well. It was a long one. I got to rest my voice now and all of that. So, yes, thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Good luck. Have a good rest of your evenings, your days. See you tomorrow. Yes. See you all. Appreciate it very much. Have a good day.